All right, today, as I read chapter 3, The Five Oceans, I want you to think about these word parts: photo, micro, sub, and bio. And we're going to also think about what strategies we could use for words that maybe we don't know. So we're going to look for words that have bold print or maybe that we might find in our glossary. Okay, so we're going to use all of those strategies when we're reading chapter 3 today. The five oceans. Five oceans make up the Earth's largest bodies of water. These include the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Arctic, and Southern Oceans. The Pacific and the Atlantic are divided into northern and southern regions. The Southern Ocean is the most recently named ocean. It was named in 2000 and includes the water surrounding Antarctica, which is really interesting because I did not know that until that is brand new learning for me as an adult. I did not know that. I missed that announcement. None of these five oceans is completely surrounded by land. They flow into one another, forming one enormous body of water. Salt everywhere. Much of the salt, or oceans contain salt water. Much of this salt comes from the land. Rainwater runs down mountainsides. It washes across the plains and into rivers. The water picks up salt from the ground along the way. Eventually, rivers carry salt into the ocean. Meanwhile, the sun heats the ocean surface. This causes the water to evaporate into gas and rises to form clouds. Most of the salt is left behind. Saltiness, or salinity, is measured in parts per thousand, or ppt. So the first P is parts, per is the second P, and thousand is the last T. So parts per thousand, or ppt. So I'm going to stop right there for a second because I see this word in bold. Now, one thing I noticed that this author did was they gave us a definition. So right off the bat, I can see the definition of salinity right here in the text. But I also notice that it's a bold word. And so this gives me a clue that this word is a word detective word. The author is assuming that maybe a reader might not know that word. So they're going to highlight and make it bold. So if I skip to the back of the book, I have my important words or my glossary. And if I look right here, I see the word salinity and the definition is saltiness. So how salty something is called its salinity. Ocean water's salinity is about 35 ppt, parts per thousand. This means that in every 1,000 pounds of seawater, it contains 35 pounds of salt. This is far too salty for humans to drink, but it doesn't bother ocean animals. Their bodies filter out excess salt from the water as it enters their systems. So our caption reminds us ocean animals such as fish are equipped to live in salty water. And our map over here tells us, shows us where all the oceans are. Temperature and pressure. Ocean temperatures cover a wide range. Surface waters in the Arctic and Southern Oceans are icy cold. Surface waters in the Southern Pacific and Indian Oceans are quite warm. Rain, wind, and the sun's heat affect the water temperature at the surface. But deeper down, the sun's warmth fades away. Wind and rain have little effect. The water gradually gets colder. At the deep ocean floor, the water is just above freezing, because otherwise it would be a solid. It wouldn't be liquid anymore. All right, so that was temperature. So this says pressure, so we're going to change our topic a little bit. Pressure also increases as you move deeper into the ocean. On land, we don't notice it, but the weight of the atmosphere presses down on our bodies. In the ocean, water also presses down. As a diver descends, the amount of water above the diver increases. Therefore, the pressure on his or her body increases. Divers working at extreme depths wear special suits. These are built to protect their bodies. So we can see those special suits as they're going down and using special tanks with a mixture of gases to help them breathe. Sunlight. On land, sunlight falls on mosses, ferns, and trees. Their cells use the sun's energy to change different chemicals into food. Well, this process is called photosynthesis. So here's our first word. Do you remember what photo means? I hope you said light. Photo means light. And we just read that their cells use the sun's light or the sun's energy to change chemicals into food. So photosynthesis is synthesizing light into something else. So it's changing light into something else. Ocean plants do the same. Sunlight filters through the water, reaching tiny floating plants. Sunlight also shines on strands of seaweed. These plants carry on photosynthesis to live and grow. Now, I could also use my glossary and go look at the word photosynthesis in the glossary. So we'll make sure we do that at the end. Just beneath the ocean surface, the sunlight is quite bright. In fact, the upper 330 feet of the water, there is enough light for plants to survive. But as you go deeper, the sunlight dims. It becomes too faint for plants to photosynthesize. The only plants here are dead ones that are sinking down from below. Below about 3,300 feet or 1,000 meters, the sea becomes completely dark. And that's where you see these little creatures like the fangtooth. They live in complete darkness 3 miles below the ocean's surface. Where land and sea meet. At the edges of the continents, the land gently slopes into the sea. This shallow sloping region is called the continental shelf. Next, the land drops off and becomes much steeper. This region is known as the continental slope. Then the slope levels off a bit into the zone called the continental rise. And this rise leads to the deep ocean floor. So I like how those 3 phrases they have with continental are all illustrated in this diagram. So even if I don't look in the glossary for those, I have this visual that can help me understand the difference between the shelf, the slope, and the rise. Surprises on the ocean floor. Part of the ocean floor is completely flat. This is called the abysmal plain. A chain of volcanic mountains rises from the plain. Some are active with hot rock and ash flowing from them. Others have been quiet for centuries. Many of these mountains are among the tallest on Earth. Some reach well above the water, creating islands. So if I look at this word abysmal, I don't have one of those word parts. So let's go to our glossary and check it out. Abysmal, having to do with the bottom waters of the ocean. And I'm saying that right. Abysmal. Abyssal. Not abysmal. That's a whole different thing. I'm looking at my pronunciation. Abyssal. Abyssal, like an abyss. I know an abyss is like a deep, deep, deep crater or like canyon kind of thing. I don't want to fall in the abyss. So abyssal. The deep, deep sea. Many oceanographers are fascinated by deep sea trenches. These are huge cracks in the ocean floor. The Java Trench lies in the Indian Ocean. The lowest spot is more than 4 miles down. The Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic is even deeper. But the Mariana Trench has the deepest spot known. Lying in the Pacific, it extends almost 7 miles into the earth. In 1960, the U.S. Navy sent a manned vehicle to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The Navy was testing a special deepwater vessel named the Trieste. The sphere at the bottom of the vessel housed 2 men. It had thick steel walls and a single round window. The divers inside were John Walsh and Jacques Piccard. They shared a small, cramped space inside the cabin. As the Trieste descended, the cabin grew cold. The men had to put on warmer clothing. They ate candy bars during the trip to keep up their energy. It took almost 5 hours to reach the bottom of the trench. Walsh and Piccard switched on some high-powered lights and looked outside. They were surprised to see shrimp and fish. The men spent about 20 minutes at the bottom before returning to the surface. On the go. The ocean is never still. At the surface, waves are whipped along by the wind. On quiet or breezy days, the waves are low and calm. But during storms, the winds stir up huge, violent waves. Some of the most powerful waves occur right after underwater earthquakes. These deep sea jolts are such a shock that they can produce waves hundreds of feet tall. These waves are called tsunamis. So I could look up tsunamis in the text because she's put it bold. Tides are slow movements of the entire ocean. They are seen along any shoreline. The water takes hours to creep up the shore. Then it takes hours for the water level to fall again. Currents are the rivers in the ocean. They're areas where the water flows in a specific direction. The wind and the earth's spin are 2 things that can produce currents. Chapter 4, Amazing Sea Life. The oceans are home to some of the most unusual organisms on the earth. Some algae have tiny air-filled balloons that help them float near the water's surface. The mimic octopus pretends to be a sea snake, a poisonous fish, or a jellyfish to escape danger. The blobfish floats above the seafloor waiting for slow-moving prey to drift by. And the clownfish finds safety among poisonous sea anemones. All sea creatures depend on one another for food or protection. Small but important. Ooh. The upper layers of the ocean receive the most sunlight. Billions of microscopic plants and animals live in this region. Oh, so I see that word microscopic right here. Micro on our chart means small. So if you are a microscopic animal, you are very, very tiny, too small to see. These organisms, called plankton, depend on water movements to wash them around. The tiny plants use the sun's energy to produce food. The animals feed on other plankton that drift by. Although these organisms are smaller than a pinhead, they are quite important to ocean life. Very young fish feed almost entirely on animal plankton. They dart after these weak swimmers and swallow them whole. Some fish continue to eat plankton as adults. Humpback whales eat plankton that they filter from the water. Sponges and tube-dwelling worms also eat plankton. So do the tiny animals that build coral reefs. Without plankton, many sea creatures would not survive. Small but mighty. Eat or be eaten. Eating is the only one thing animals do to survive. Another is to keep from being eaten. To avoid becoming another animal's meal, many animals use camouflage. So I could look that word up because it's in bold. Camouflage animals have unusual colors, patterns, or limbs. These help them blend into their surroundings. The leafy sea dragon is one such fish. It appears to have stems and leaves growing from its body. Oh, so then they give you a picture because that's kind of an animal that maybe you haven't heard of before. Predators see this plant and pass right by. Sea slugs use warning colors. These soft-bodied, slow-moving animals are easy targets. but their bright, shocking colors tell predators that they are poisonous and to keep away. Many butterfly fish fool their enemies another way. These fish have a large black spot near their tail. The spot looks like an eye. Predators snap at that spot, hoping to bite the fish's head. Instead, they get a mouthful of water as the fish shoots away. Sea animals are built for ocean life. Whales, for example, must breathe before they dive for food. However, many whales can hold their breath underwater for more than an hour. Crabs often lose their legs to predators, but they can grow them back later. Jellyfish cannot chase after food, but they can sting and paralyze fish that wander by. Seals have extra body fat to insulate them, keeping them warm in icy waters. So those are all animal adaptations. Living lights. What do animals in the deepest, darkest waters do if they need light? They make their own. This is known as bioluminescence. So here's a word that's on our chart. Bio means life. So life, and then lumen has to do with light again. So we have light from life. The bodies of bioluminescent animals contain a special chemical. It combines with oxygen to produce light, like the blue in the comb jelly below. Some animals flash their lights to attract mates. Others use them to catch prey. The anglerfish dangles a lighted organ from its head. Smaller fish come to check it out and are quickly swallowed. Chapter 5, New Discoveries, New Questions. Scientists are constantly working to learn more about the oceans. Some are looking at the deep sea floor. They have discovered hot springs there. The water bubbles up from deep inside the earth. Amazingly, giant clams, spider crabs, and tube worms live nearby. Some scientists are learning how these organisms can stand such heat or what they eat. Other scientists are building better equipment for studying this unusual environment. If we look at the caption right here, we've got the submarine's windows are built to withstand great pressure. I hear you shouting submarine as one of our little word parts today. I hear you from here. Yes, so sub means under. So, and marine has to do with the seas and the oceans. So, like if you're a marine biologist, you're studying the seas and the oceans. So, this is a word that means like under the ocean. And so, this vehicle can go under the ocean to study plants and animals. Finding ways to help. Some oceanographers study pollution in the ocean. Scientists find scraps of plastic in fish's stomachs. These scraps also appear in birds that eat fish. The plastic in the ocean comes from careless humans. When people litter, the trash is often carried into the ocean. Sometimes people dump their trash directly into the ocean. This harms ocean life. Scientists work to stop such pollution. They hope to protect plants and animals that live in the sea. Many oceanographers are learning more about ocean animals. One group is studying camouflage in cuttlefish. The cuttlefish is a relative of the octopus. It has millions of color-changing cells in its skin, and the cells are constantly changing to match its surrounding. Scientists hope to understand how the cuttlefish does this. This might help them improve camouflage for soldiers in battle. A big job. Only 10% of the Earth's oceans have been explored. More than 200,000 different organisms have been named. But scientists believe that as many as 2 million kinds of organisms make the oceans their home. There is a lot about the ocean that is still to be discovered, and each new discovery uncovers new questions. Will you be the one to answer them someday? All right, so I hope you enjoyed this book today. And on the next slide, we will learn about being a word detective with our daily reading today.